Isn't this darling? And who would believe this outfit didn't come from the most exclusive children's shop? I'm always amazed at how terrific everything I make looks now that I've started sewing on a Riccar lock. And the amount of time I've saved in sewing is also amazing. The outfit that I'm wearing took less than 2 hours to complete, and the insides of my garments have that professional, ready-to-wear look. And I used a 3-thread overedge for decorative stitching here on my neckline. It virtually eliminates the need for jewelry. Unlined linen jackets are a breeze, and I no longer have that homemade look. The insides of my seams are professional looking, and I've clean finished the unusual lapel with 2 strands of embroidery floss for a decorative touch. Sewing for my new neighbors was so much fun. I used a rolled hem feature on my Riccar lock and finished this project in no time, and I know my new neighbors felt a heartfelt welcome when I presented them with one of these. Perhaps you sew for one of those designer label conscious people? Well, some of the pattern companies have at least made that easier for us. They include the label in with the pattern. And with the Riccar lock, every seam is perfectly finished. And my teenage daughter is proud to tell her friends that Mom made this for her. And what little girl wouldn't love to snuggle in this cozy nightgown? This special decorative edge on the collar and on the sleeves is done with my rolled hem, a simple process of stretching the ribbing as I sew. Evening wear can be stunning and simple, and your Riccar lock will handle all of these delicate fabrics. For the athletic people in your life, active wear is a cinch to make. The durable, stretchable overlock seam is perfect for the lycra used in these men's bicycle shorts. Now let's take a moment to look at the inner mechanism of the Riccar lock to see how we've achieved such fabulous results. We'll be discussing 2 Riccar locks, the 4-3-thread model number RL624 and the 3-thread model number RL613. Both overlocks have identical thread paths and conversion methods. And of course, all sewing procedures are the same. On the Riccar lock model 624, the machine uses 2 needles to carry the straight stitch threads. On model RL613, 1 needle is used. The other 2 threads are carried by metal arms called loopers. The loopers, under the needle plate, move from side to side to interlock all 4 or 3 threads into a strong, stretchable seam using a process very similar to hand knitting. The stitches form around a metal prong on the needle plate of the machine. This prong, called a stitch finger, keeps the stitches from jamming into the machine or from puckering or rolling the fabric edge. For a closer view of this process, let's remove the presser foot. Notice the stitches forming around the stitch finger. In instances where you need to clear the stitch finger, pull a little slack in the needle thread and gently tug on the thread chain until the finger is free of thread. The 2 cutting blades or knives work in a scissor-like motion to trim away excess seam allowance of fabric just ahead of the stitching. Notice the presser foot. The unusually long shape and the length of the feed dog teeth combine to give the machine its firm, even feeding action. New owners are usually apprehensive about threading their serger, but it's surprisingly easy. And the serger comes to you already threaded with white cones of thread. To change to a new spool of thread, you simply clip your thread here, below the thread guide hanger, and then tie the ends of your thread spools or cones to the ends of the existing threads and pull each strand through. Let's talk about what types of threads you should use for your serger sewing. A top quality long staple polyester thread should be your first choice. You want to avoid the bargain bin threads. Cone thread is specially designed for serger sewing since it feeds from the top. Thread on regular spools can be used too if you insert one of the spool caps from your accessory case into the top of the spool. The cap forms a smooth edge and lets the thread feed off evenly. With my new threads tied on, the knots will easily pull through the entire thread path, except for the eyes of the needles. Turn the thread tension dials to the smallest number. Run the machine until the upper and lower looper knots appear at the throat plate. Snip the needle thread just before the knot reaches the eye of the needle. Use these curved tweezers from the accessory kit to rethread the needles. Be careful to slide all threads under the back of the presser foot. Lower the foot and check for stitching. Before sewing, return your tension dials to their original numbers. Check the instruction manual that comes with your machine for recommended settings. Wasn't that easy? Even threading the machine manually is simple. It's all color-coded. To open the front cover, slide the door to the right, then pull the cover down toward you. Swing the extension table out to the left. Now the entire threading path is in view. Always begin with the upper looper, the green-colored thread path. Fit the cone over the cone supporter on the spindle. That's the second one from the far right spindle. From the cone, the thread goes up through the top guide from back to front. Bring the thread down and pass it through the thread guide and under the first tension disc. Bring thread straight down through the slot so that it passes between the second tension discs. Give the thread a little extra tug to be certain it is fully lodged between the discs. Then guides here, 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 and here, before the thread passes through the eye of the curved upper looper. The tweezers are a big help here. Next, add the lower looper thread, color-coded blue. This thread is very similar to the upper looper thread we just completed. Up through the thread stand into the thread guide from back to front. Bring the thread down and pass through the thread guide under the first tension disc. Bring the thread straight down along the slot so that the thread passes between the second tension disc. Then here, 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 and here. Turn your hand wheel toward you until the lower looper is in the extreme left side position. Pass the thread through the hole using the tweezers. Now turn your hand wheel until the lower looper is in the extreme right position. Use the tweezers to pass the thread through the hole from front to back. Pull at least 3 inches of thread through the lower looper. Place a thread on the far left spindle and follow the yellow-colored guides, ending with the eye of the left-hand needle. On Model 613, your threading is complete. On Model 624, place the thread on the remaining spindle and follow the red path to the right needle. Thread the needle from front to back. Close your extension table and the front cover. Be sure all strands of thread are under the back of the foot. Lower the presser foot and test for stitching. Notice we've used 4 colors of thread matched to the color coding of our machine. This is an excellent tool for learning how to understand the Riccar lock tension settings. Now we're ready to begin to sew. With your Riccar lock, it isn't necessary to lift the presser foot to insert the fabric. Just place it at the tip of the foot and start to stitch. The feed dogs pick it up automatically. Be careful not to pull the fabric. The machine will feed it evenly without help. At the end of a seam, just sew off the edge. Don't worry, the machine won't jam. Then bring the thread chain forward and under the foot. The blades will cut your thread chain. My Riccar lock has fully variable stitch width. I like to use my widest stitch width setting on woven fabrics such as this little girl's cotton dress. And I use a narrower stitch width for knit fabrics. For example, the inside seam of this camisole. Changing your stitch width is really quite simple. Open the front cover and the extension table. Remove the upper knife from its cutting position. Push the knife to the right with your left hand and rotate the knob with your right hand. Turn the seam width knob downward to select a wider stitch width. For a smaller width, turn the knob in the opposite direction. When adjusting the width, use the graduations on the throat plate as a guide and line up with the left edge of the lower knife holder. And of course your stitch length is fully variable. 3 is the average setting, and I use that for most of my sewing. But I use a shorter stitch length when I want a more durable seam, or I'll use a longer stitch length for areas such as overcasting. To select a stitch length, turn the stitch length dial located on the right-hand side of your serger. For the shortest stitch, turn the dial to 1, and for your longest stitch, turn the dial to 5. The most basic way of using your serger is for finishing edges on hems, facings, and seams. To finish those edges, guide the fabric through the machine so the knife blade just skims the fabric edge, shaving off any ravelly threads before the stitches form. It's easiest to overcast your edges while your fabric piece is flat, before any seams are sewn. Now let's take a look at an easy way to turn an outside corner. Stitch right to the corner, lift the presser foot and clear the stitch finger. Pull a bit of slack in the needle thread and tug gently on the fabric behind the foot. This slides the last few stitches off the finger and lets you turn the fabric and continue sewing in the new direction. An inside corner is handled differently. Stitch until the knife, not the needle, reaches the corner. Lower the needle to anchor the fabric, then raise the presser foot. Turn the fabric so that a pleat forms to the left and the right-hand edge is straight. Lower the foot and continue sewing. And just that easy, a perfect corner. You know, there is a way you can use your Riccar overlock stitch to ease in the curve of a shirt tail hem. Run your finger over the thread chain to smooth out the loops. Depending on the Riccar model that you have, 1 or 2 threads will be noticeably shorter than the others. These are the needle threads. Pulling these threads will ease in any extra fullness and help the hem lie flat. Pulling the needle threads even more produces gathers. Your Riccar lock can be used to sew a seam and finish the edges, all in one easy operation. Place your 2 pieces of fabric right sides together and guide them through the machine. Could anything be easier? And look at the perfect seam I have in this delicate lace overlay. And of course the professional finish that I have on this leotard, using the same seaming technique. And from the outside, the seams are totally pucker-free. Now it's important to remember not to sew over pins, otherwise those knife blades are going to get awfully dull. Pin if you need to, and just remove the pins as each one approaches the knives. Or put your pins in from the opposite direction, with the heads in toward the fabric and the points back about ½ an inch from the cut edge. They can then feed easily under the presser foot without touching the blades. Unlike your conventional machine, the serger doesn't have a reverse button for securing your seams. In most sewing situations, we have one seam being intersected by another, thereby securing that seam. To make that intersection even more durable, use a drop of seam sealant. When you don't have an intersecting seam, you can lock the beginning of a seam using this method. Take 1 to 2 stitches into the fabric. Lift the presser foot and run your fingers over the thread chain to smooth out the loops. Bring the thread chain under the foot and up between the foot and the knife blade. Lower the foot, and as you continue sewing, the stitches will form over the chain and the seam is locked. After sewing about 1 inch, pull the thread chain to the right and the knife will cut it off. To secure stitches at the end of a seam, sew until the needle is just beyond the edge of the fabric. Turn the hand wheel towards you to bring up the needle. Raise the presser foot. Pull a little slack in the needle thread and gently pull the fabric toward the back to slide the stitches off the stitch finger. Flip the fabric over and reposition it under the foot, slightly back from the knives so as not to cut into your previous stitching. Lower the front and sew about 1 inch, then sew off the edge and cut the tail chain. It's easy to convert your 4-thread Riccar lock to sew with 3 threads. Simply remove your left or right hand needle thread. Use a small screwdriver located in the handy accessory storage area in the side door of your machine. Just snip the thread at the eye of the needle, then remove the needle. Retighten the holding screw so it doesn't work loose and get lost. Sewing with only the left needle gives the widest stitch. Using only the right needle will form a narrower stitch width. 3-thread seaming is durable for all but the most loosely woven fabrics, and it's ideal for knits where raveling really isn't a concern. This t-shirt was made that way. And let me show you how easy it was to apply this rib trim. Fold the trim in half, place it along the right side of the neckline and serge, stretching the trim to fit. Now that's a professional looking neckline. Experienced serger users like to use 3-thread for creating special decorative effects. On this t-shirt, I've used a stretchy nylon thread in the upper looper to match the collar with the red stripes. And using the stretchy nylon thread on this placemat certainly made it quick and easy, and it eliminated the need for using bias tape. Decorative serging doesn't have to be seen only on the outside. Look at the fabulous finish I have on the inside of this skirt, using a variegated rayon thread. One of the most exciting aspects about serging is that narrow rolled edge finish. It eliminates that turn it under 1/4 of an inch, turn it under 1/4 of an inch again, press it and sew close to the fold. As the machine trims the fabric edge, it actually rolls that edge under and encases it with a dainty thread finish. You'll recognize this stitch on napkins and tablecloths that you've purchased, and think of the hours I saved on finishing the ruffles on this great party dress. And converting the machine to narrow rolled edge settings is simple. The narrow rolled hem uses 3-thread stitching. On the 4-thread Riccar lock, convert to 3-thread stitching, if you haven't already done so, by removing the left-hand needle. Raise the presser foot and turn the hand wheel towards you to bring the needle to its highest position. Open the extension table and free arm cover. Clear the stitch finger by pulling a little slack in the needle thread. Rotate the upper knife out of cutting position. Loosen the front screw and remove the throat plate. Position the special rolled hem throat plate and tighten the screw. Turn the seam width knob and adjust so that the left side of the lower knife holder is aligned with the mark of the rolled hem throat plate. Rotate the upper knife to its cutting position and lower the presser foot. Next, close your extension table and free arm cover. That whole conversion process took less than 60 seconds. You'll want to tighten the lower looper thread tension so that the upper thread actually comes over and wraps around that fabric edge. To accomplish this, turn the lower looper dial, the one color-coded blue, several numbers to about 8. Set your stitch length regulator to 1 or 2 for a satiny smooth look. Now you can just insert the fabric and sew. And just that fast you can have a beautiful professional finish for all sorts of projects. Besides using the rolled hem for scarves, napkins, and ruffles, you can use the rolled hem for what we call the fluted or lettuce edge, as you see here on these little girls' socks, or the dainty delicate hem here on the nightgown. You achieve this effect by sewing on stretchable fabrics or bias edges. Just stretch the fabric as you sew it. And the narrow rolled hem makes nearly invisible seams in sheer fabrics such as voile georgette or chiffon. Isn't that gorgeous? And look how durable too. The rolled edge thread chain stitched without fabric makes professional looking belt loops. Spaghetti straps and narrow bias cording are quick and easy with your Riccar lock. Start by running a thread chain a little longer than the strap you plan to make. Bring the chain to the front. Fold the fabric around the chain, making sure it stays securely in the fold and doesn't get caught in the stitches. The knives trim away the excess seam allowance. When the stitching is complete, pull on the thread chain to turn the strap right side out. Easy. Returning the machine to conventional stitching is a matter of replacing the original throat plate. Reset your lower looper tension at approximately 3 to 4 and reset your stitch length to about 3. A special feature on your Riccar lock is its ability to convert to free arm sewing. This is particularly useful when I'm sewing pant legs or sleeves and those special sewing situations that are just too difficult to sew on a flatbed machine. Turn the lever located on the left side of the extension table to the front of the machine and swing the table out. Now slide your work on the free arm. See what a convenient feature this is? Let's talk for a minute about thread tensions and what your stitches should look like. Basically, I'll be showing you how to read your stitch. The upper and lower looper threads, the threads that appear to zigzag in the stitch, should interlock right over the cut edge of the fabric. If the interlocking point pulls to the lower side, the lower looper tension is too tight. Loosen it by turning the blue dial to a lower number. If the interlocking point pulls to the top side of the fabric, the upper looper tension is too tight. Loosen it by turning the green dial to a lower number. The needle threads should form a straight row of stitches on the top side and be barely visible on the back side. If loops show on the back, tighten the yellow or red knobs by turning them to a higher number. If your stitching looks like this, from the right side, as if the seam were about to come apart, that is also a symptom of loose needle tension. It's easiest to understand tension settings by threading up with colors that actually match the color coding on your machine. Then go ahead and experiment. You really can't harm the machine, and it's the easiest way to learn how to read your stitch. And you'll find a thread tension chart inside your instruction manual that comes with your Riccar lock. It's easy to create an exciting decorative effect using the 3-thread mock flat lock technique as I've done here on this short set. And it's really a simple matter of adjusting your tensions. Loosen the needle thread tension dial to about 1 or 2. Tighten the lower looper to about 7 or 8. Sew a test stitch. The loops should form loosely over the fabric edge. The lower looper thread, the blue one, will be barely noticeable and should ride along the cut edge of your fabric. If the interlocking point pulls to the lower side, loosen the needle tension a bit more. If the fabric appears to pucker, tighten the upper tension slightly. To make that decorative flat lock seam, place your fabrics wrong sides together. That's just the opposite of normal sewing. And stitch, letting the knives trim away excess seam allowance as usual. After stitching, pull gently crosswise on the seam to flatten the stitches. Mock flat locking is another place to use those heavier decorative threads, this time in the upper looper. And you can create flat lock tucks anywhere in a garment by simply folding your fabric in half and sewing over that fold. This is an example of a flat lock tuck using buttonhole twist. To avoid cutting into the garment, rotate the upper knife out of position. Fold the fabric right side out and guide the fabric through the machine with the fold along the edge of the needle plate. Let the loops of the stitches form off the folded edge. Now pull the stitches crosswise to flatten. Mock flat locking creates a flat, soft, supple seam in specialty fabrics such as sweater knits or fun fur, and it creates a bulk-free seam. In lingerie, mock flat lock seaming eliminates that ridge that may show on the outside of your garments. And using the mock flat lock technique, you can attach ribbon and lace all in one easy step. Place the lace and the tricot wrong sides together. I like to leave about 1/2 inch of fabric for the knives to trim. Insert a narrow ribbon through the presser foot. Guide the fabric through the machine with the top edge of the lace just next to the knife blade. The stitches form around the ribbon. Pull crosswise to flatten the stitching. To reset your machine for conventional 3-thread seaming, adjust your needle tension back to its original setting, approximately 2 to 3, and your lower looper to approximately 3 or 4. An optional feature on sergers is differential feed. It allows you to handle more difficult fabrics with ease. The machine has 2 feed dogs. By adjusting the differential feed dial located inside the stitch length regulator, the front feed dog will feed fabric into the machine faster or slower than the rear feed dog. For normal sewing, set the dial to N, and the feed dogs will move together and feed evenly. Eliminate puckers in delicate fabrics by turning the differential feed dial to a lower number. The front feed dog will feed fabric more slowly than the rear one, holding the fabric taut as you sew. What a lovely finish! The beautiful sweater and knit fabrics available today tend to ripple as you sew. You can eliminate this problem by turning the dial to a higher number. The front feed dog motion will be faster than the rear, easing the fabric as you sew. Differential feed is a wonderful feature for gathering lightweight fabrics. Set the differential feed dial to 2 and the stitch length to 4. What a quick, clean finish! You can add durability to your swimwear seams by turning the dial to 0.7. The differential feed stretches the fabric as it sews to create a more flexible seam without distorting the fabric. And using the 0.7 setting is perfect for lettuce edging. Now that we've talked about so many exciting sewing projects that you can make on your Riccar lock, let's talk about the care of your machine to keep it in top condition. Because of the cutting action of the blades, lint builds up quickly. You have a lint brush in the accessories storage area to clean out these areas. Or I like to use a quick spray of Lint B Gone, a high-pressure propellant cleaner available from your dealer. Your Riccar lock is designed to use a particular needle. Refer to your instruction manual for the specific type and size. To change a needle when it eventually becomes dull, remove the snap-on presser foot by pushing on the releasing lever. Snip the needle thread and hold the needle with your special tweezers while you loosen the clamp screw. To insert the new needle, hold it with the tweezers or your fingers, slip the tip down into the hole of the needle plate. Then slip the upper end all the way up inside the needle bar opening. Tighten the screw firmly, and you're ready to rethread and continue sewing. Refer to your instruction manual for more specific details. The critical parts of your machine are made of a special material that don't require oiling. However, in your accessory case, you have a sewing machine oil for the 4 points on your machine, here, 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 and here, that require oiling once or twice a month, depending on use. I know you'll enjoy serging on your Riccar lock, and I hope the information on this video will help you understand your machine and give you the confidence for every serger project you make. There are a number of excellent resource books on the market that your dealer may carry that will further increase that serger skill. A few of the books that have helped me are Creative Serging, Sewing with Sergers, The Successful Serging Handbook, and the Serger Idea Book. It's jam-packed with full color illustrations. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to write to me at the Educational Department at Riccar of America. The address is 14281 Franklin Avenue, Tustin, California, 92680.